This is a Matsutake hunt in central Washington on the east side of the Cascade Crest. I found this area years ago, kind of by luck, didn't really know much about Matsutake picking, and then later learned that it's a study, place where they do shiro studies, as it's called. Matsutake have this very specific zones and conditions they will grow under. This area they grow, you can see the ash layer from where I'm picking. That's volcanic ash from a past eruption. God, I guess it could be hundreds of years or thousands, who knows, that got into the soil, and then the soil eroded or went back where that layer was exposed to the air. This is an older one. When they start getting too old and flagging, you can see the worms there a little bit. Have to throw a lot of them away. This area, I've had them fruit even a few years ago when it was 93 days without rain in Washington. This area is still fruited. Of course, Matsutake hunting can be competitive. The only people I've seen in this area were kind of senior citizens that weren't getting up and climbing too much. Here we have some white rustlers, which when you're out hunting Matsutake, and you'll find a lot of these often, and other areas when you're looking for white mushrooms, there's a lot of phrases: better punted than hunted, better kicked than picked. There's a whole bunch of them. The brittle gills are one of the distinctive characteristics when you learn how to identify your rustlers. Some of them are definitely getting wormy. And then there's 5 grades of Matsutake. And many times you see them just from bumps in the soil. So as I saw an older one there and started looking around, and then found one of that would probably be a grade 1 or 2, usually 1 through 5. Here we have Allotropa virgata. It is a plant that only grows with Matsutake, mycorrhizal, with the mycelium on the roots of trees. So when you find that, you know that Matsutake are in the area. May not catch it at the fruiting time. Say if you found them in the summer, you would come back later and try to find them. Here we have wild ginger, Asarum caudatum, which is growing in the area. It is not suggested to eat this anymore. There was a horrific outbreak in 1992 in Belgium with some Chinese herbal medicine. It was a dietary supplement, and some people had minor kidney damage, and some people had total renal failure. 3 people actually died. So unfortunately, it's not suggested to eat this anymore, and if you have been eating it, I would suggest that you look at the studies on the honey mushrooms. When you're learning how to pick, they can tend to be kind of confusing, a little scary at first, but then once you get them, they're pretty obvious. They get that kind of black-brown scaliness on top. They're always on roots, trees, or dead wood. Here I am starting my canning. USDA suggests never canning any wild mushrooms, but mainly I think that's because of identification problems. And those are some of the ingredients I put together. I did the guidelines from the government for pressure cooking. I had done it before. I didn't cook them quite as long or under pressure, and I never had any problems, never got sick, nothing failed in the canning. And they definitely were better not cooking them as long as is prescribed. But I started using pressure cooking for a lot of my canning just because it's easier and it's a good pot, and you really have had very, very little cans fail. These are really delicious. A great simple dish just to put with rice or rice and fish, anything kind of Japanese inspired. Of course, 90% or so of the Matsutake crop in the Northwest, from British Columbia down into California, goes to Asia now. A small Matsutake button was traditionally at Japanese weddings, especially more high-budget weddings, and so those go over there. The timing every year is fall to late fall. You can go to places, stores like the Wajimaya in Seattle, and they'll be available there for the extent of the season, which could be anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to 2 months, I've seen. They start in high elevation in southern Oregon, in the lodgepole forests. There's very distinct zones and conditions in which they grow. Even some more curious conditions in California under very specific trees and very specific places. There we are, delicious pickled canned Matsutake.